Jack was a young, energetic ranger who had recently started working in the national park. His love for nature and animals had been with him since childhood, and he always dreamed of having such a job. Each day, Jack eagerly anticipated new adventures and the chance to help the park's wildlife. The park where Jack was stationed was home to many species of animals, but it was particularly known for its population of African lions. There were about 20 lions in the park, and Jack felt a special sense of responsibility for their health and safety. Early one morning, he set out on his patrol. The cool, fresh air was filled with the fragrance of blooming plants. His route took him through a rocky area, home to one of the lion prides. These rocks provided perfect cover, shaded resting spots, and excellent vantage points for hunting. As Jack approached the rocks, he spotted a group of young lions playing near the cliff's edge. Their carefree leaping and chasing brought both a smile and a sense of concern. He knew how dangerous the area could be, especially for inexperienced animals. Suddenly, he saw part of the rock crumbling under the paws of the playful lions, and his heart raced as he sensed the impending danger. Jack hoped the adult lions would call the younger ones away from the cliff in time. One of the older lions, noticing the danger, stood and roared loudly, urging the young lions to move away. However, the playful cubs, engrossed in their fun, didn't immediately heed the warning. Seeing his calls ignored, the older lion decisively moved toward the young ones. His powerful roar finally caught their attention, and they began retreating from the cliff's edge. But it was too late. The weight of the adult lion was enough to trigger the unstable cliff's collapse. A huge piece broke off, and the lion slid off the edge of the cliff. Fortunately, the animal managed to catch its claws on a rock ledge, but its position was extremely dangerous. Without outside help, the lion would not be able to stay on the edge of the abyss for long. Without wasting a second, Jack grabbed the radio and called for backup. He quickly explained the situation and requested immediate assistance. The ranger knew that he had to act quickly, otherwise the lion would dash to pieces on the rocks below. Having decided to act, Jack immediately headed towards the cliff in his car. He had to drive off the remaining lions to safely carry out the rescue operation. By honking loudly and maneuvering the Jeep, Jack hoped the noise and movement would scare away the predators. To his relief, the tactic worked. The pride began to retreat, clearing the area around the cliff. As soon as the last lion was out of sight, Jack jumped out of the car and rushed to the edge of the cliff. Looking over the edge, the ranger saw a lion desperately clinging to a rock. The animal made plaintive sounds, its claws slid along the stone. Jack understood that he only had a few minutes before the lion's strength left him. Quickly returning to the Jeep, Jack took out strong ropes from the trunk. At that moment, Jack heard the long-awaited sound of approaching Jeeps. His colleagues arrived to help. Wasting no time, the Rangers immediately got down to business, following Jack's instructions. Together, they created a system of cables and ropes and began to lower one end down to the stuck lion. Jack, as the initiator of the rescue operation, took upon himself the most dangerous part, tying the lion with ropes. Carefully approaching the edge of the cliff, Jack began to lower the rope. The lion seemed to understand that people were trying to help him and did not show any aggression. His amber eyes were full of fear and hope. With great difficulty, Jack managed to throw the noose around the lion's body. The animal instinctively twitched, almost falling into the abyss, but the ranger spoke soothingly to him. Surprisingly, the lion seemed to understand everything and became quiet, allowing the binding to be completed. Once the lion was securely secured, Jack gave the signal to the rest of the Rangers to begin the climb. This was not an easy task. The weight of an adult lion was very large, and the unstable surface of the rock made the work difficult. The Rangers pulled with all their might, slowly lifting the lion up. Jack encouraged his colleagues in the lion, realizing that the life of the animal depended on their well-coordinated work. Finally, after several painful minutes, the animal found itself on solid ground. Exhausted but alive, the lion was breathing heavily as he lay on the grass. The Rangers retreated, giving the lion more space. Everyone except Jack, the young man, driven by some kind of inner impulse, remained next to the animal. He slowly knelt down next to the lion, looking him straight in the eyes. At that moment, a spark of understanding seemed to run between man and beast. The lion showed no aggression, but looked at Jack with something akin to gratitude. The ranger carefully began to remove the ropes, and the lion allowed him to do so. When the last rope was removed, the lion slowly rose to its paws. He looked at Jack again and let out a quiet growl, which was more like a purr, and slowly walked away towards his pride. The Rangers watched the scene in awe, amazed at the bond that had developed between man and wild animal. After this incident, life in the park returned to normal. Jack continued his work, but often thought about the rescued lion. He hoped to see him up close again, but knew the chances were slim. Several months have passed. The monsoon season had arrived, a time for which the Rangers had always anxiously awaited. Heavy rains brought with it the threat of floods and landslides, which could seriously harm the inhabitants of the park. One morning, during a particularly heavy downpour, Jack was patrolling his area. Visibility was poor. The Jeep's wipers could barely cope with the flow of water on the windshield. The ranger moved slowly, carefully scanning the surroundings for any animals in trouble. Suddenly, Jack noticed a large fallen tree ahead. Deciding to take a closer look, he stopped the Jeep and stepped out into the pouring rain. Pulling the hood of his jacket over his head, the ranger headed towards the tree, thinking about how many small animals might almost have lost their home due to its fall. Jack was so absorbed in his thoughts that he did not immediately hear the growing rumble. When he finally paid attention to him, it was already too late. Turning around, the ranger was horrified to see a wall of dirt and debris approaching. A huge landslide was rushing towards him. In a panic, Jack tried to run to the Jeep, but quickly realized that he would not make it in time. The only possible shelter was a fallen tree. The ranger rushed towards him and, climbing as high as possible, tightly wrapped his arms and legs around the trunk. A moment later, a wave of mud covered Jack. He felt a powerful stream trying to tear him away from the tree. The ranger clung to the trunk for dear life, praying to withstand the onslaught of the elements. When the first wave subsided, Jack found himself buried under a thick layer of mud and debris. Luckily, there was a small space around his face that allowed him to breathe. But the man understood that his position remained extremely dangerous. Jack tried to move, but found that he was practically immobilized. A dense layer of mud hampered his movement. The ranger tried to remain calm, knowing that panicking would only make the situation worse. Time passed and Jack began to worry. He knew that his colleagues would be busy cleaning up the landslide throughout the park. How long will it be before someone notices his absence and starts looking for him? Suddenly, Jack heard some noise above him. Through a small crack, he saw movement, and for a moment, he thought he saw a glimpse of sandy fur. But the man decided that it was a figment of his imagination. Where does the lion come from here? The noise intensified, and Jack felt something heavy moving through the dirt directly above him. He held his breath, not knowing what to expect. Maybe this is a new landslide that will finally bury him. But instead of a new layer of dirt, Jack felt the pressure on his body begin to lessen. Someone or something was clearing away the rubble right above him. The ranger heard a roar that sent chills down his spine, followed by human voices. Jack tried to shout, but his voice was too weak. However, the rescuers seemed to already know where to look for him. Soon the ranger saw the light and was able to take a deep breath of fresh air. When Jack was finally pulled out from under the rubble, he saw an amazing picture. Next to a group of rangers stood a huge lion covered in mud. It was the same beast that Jack had rescued on the cliff a few months ago. It turned out that the lion had somehow found the place where Jack was buried under the mud and began to dig it up. With his behavior, he attracted the attention of other rangers who rushed to help. Jack couldn't believe such a miraculous rescue. The lion he had once helped had now returned the favor. It was an incredible display of gratitude and perhaps even a budding friendship between man and wild animal. After this incident, the lion no longer avoided people in the park. Jack often saw him during his patrols, and each time there was a silent exchange of glances between them, full of mutual respect and understanding. This amazing story about mutual assistance between a man and a lion quickly spread throughout the park and far beyond its borders. She became an example of how kindness and compassion can transcend any boundaries, even between different species. Dear viewers, what do you think about this story? Please write in the comments. And if you liked this video, then like and subscribe to our channel. Goodbye.